We are. Final stretch. Well, not really. Although I wish I could have said that way sooner with this Let's Play. I checked the video and yeah, it seems the poise does increase gradually over time. The low level enemies will still get knocked around easily, but also, wow, I have over 100, some of which are duplicate videos that I really should delete, but I'm too lazy to, in the Dark Army Resurrection playlist. So yeah, that's very wacky. I'm waiting for something to finish in Path to Nowhere, so I'm leaving it open. It'll just be for a minute. I've never seen this crash in the title screen. Don't tell me it'll crash in the title screen. Huh. I guess there's a first for everything. A first for everything indeed. I now know never to expect anything. Bam, bam. How much money do I have? Did I buy anything? Or, the game can crash. Is the game actually going to... What the f... Remerging usually works. Okay, so I may have installed a new mod or two. Well, not really. I just wanted to check my mods. Okay, I altered a mod. I wanted new music and get for the Genshin thing. Okay, but I did the testing. It was working fine. So why is it not working anymore? I don't understand.
Can Amber clear the Spiral Abyss? Well, yes, any character can, as long as they have the right artifacts. You can give a random child NPC a decent artifact set, and they could probably clear the Abyss too. That being said, how well they clear the Abyss is the question. So here's my budget Yoimiya versus the Abyss. Also, happy NNN everyone. Happy November. The shop reset. Oh, true. It's actually the shop reset. And it's No Nut November. I'll just buy these. And the Intertwined Fates. What server am I on? Asia server. Oh my. Oh, wait. I guess I'm one step closer to a C6 Diona. And speaking of constellations, I actually did buy the Amber constellation from the shop. So there we go, C2 Amber. I want to test out her bunny damage at level 1, and then I'll go ahead and level it up to 8. Okay, so it says I have to shoot the foot, but maybe I could just shoot the bunny itself. Okay, so I do have to shoot the feet. Okay, that was 9,000. Let's
Did
level
I
it
like
up then.
accidentally enable a stupid mod? Graphics
Oh, what the
packs
hell?
menu.
20k no vape? So that would have been like 30k with a vape. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna level her burst. Her burst isn't even that much. Like, it only lasts like 2 seconds. Level 80 Amber. 187 EM, which is pretty high. Crit rate, pretty bad. Crit damage, fine. Fire damage, 46.6, the standard. Amos Bow, R2. Wander's Troop for the 35% increased charge
I
attack
really
damage.
hope these are
Quick
just
rundown on the
flukes and
artifacts.
Seamus just having a hard
Bennett,
time
the same
right
as
now for some
always,
reason.
but now he's at C5. Sucrose, still the same. Sackfrags, Ayaka, I'll just look at her ER because that's her role for now. Support, 231%
I've
ER,
come
should
so
be
far,
fine.
I
gave her
can't
the Sack
lose it
Sword.
all.
4-piece Instructor, C4 for the Death Shred. Alright, Abyss time, boys. Oh, this one has wooden shields. I think we're going Amber first. 17k on that. Wait, that actually... Oh, never mind. That wasn't Baron Bunny. That was just a regular aim shot. Alright, I'll do some charge shots. 20k. I want to see a Baron Bunny damage with a melt reaction though. Actually taking like a lot of time here. Yeah, this team is actually asked for this single target showcase right now. Okay, cool. I mean, this should still be a 3-star though. Floors 9 and 10, always easy. Alright, easy 3 stars. Baron Bunny? Damn, it actually exploded before I shot him. Actually aim 100. 21k. Cool. What? Ain't no way, man. God, I didn't even see the damage. What the fuck? Just black screened on me. Okay, cool. 3 stars, no sweat. Final chamber. Come on, please. Boom. 31k, let's go. Wait, if that's 31k no melt, then my melt would probably deal like 45k or something. Okay, Baron Bunny C2 is fine, but it's the range, man. It's pretty ass. Maybe I could group them up and then do the combo. What the hell? They just died. Support Ayaka is too strong. Holy. Okay, easy. I feel like I want to go Amber team second half, just because there's less enemies. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to be able to 36 star the Abyss with this setup, but there's only one way to find out.
Normally, I'd have like 150 arrows by now.
Alright.
I have no idea why I'd want to buy Luminous
Thank you, Baron
Stones.
Bunny. 22k.
I'll just with violets though.
27k, okay, that's pretty cool. Can I kill them both?
I guess you
Cool,
can't really buy
nice.
some of these.
Black screen of death. We'll go Abyss Mage if he isn't dead yet. Ooh. Just a 53k Amber, no biggie. I think this is gonna kill him.
Cold and heat resistance would be great. Dang it, I'm short
burst.
1 rupee.
Yeah.
Boom. Boom.
Trade something
Boom.
with me.
I want Amber to do the final shot here. Just give this Sison Mage a cryo. Amber? Sheesh.
Sison? I've
Let's
never
go.
heard anyone call it
Amber
that.
OP. I think I'll use the same team again. Yeah, right in team for the second half. Alright, Monolith defense. Go my 20% crit rate. What the hell? I got attacked and as I was charging my aim shot to the other guy, it went to the other guy. No, he pushed Baron Bunny away. Boink. 9k. Boink. Easy 3 stars again. Ayaka burst please. Nice. Holy. This dude went flying. Yo, still isn't dead. Like 1 HP. I have to kill the Pyro Gunslinger first, because I do not have a Hydro character. I need the Ayaka burst, what the fuck. Yo, GG, thank you for the membership. Hopefully I don't get you anytime soon. Bro,
it isn't 2
actually
wheels, but
cursed.
it's close
GG
enough to
actually
2
cursed
wheels.
me. What the fuck?
And I want...
Come on, Baron Bunny. Sheesh, 52k. Baron Bunny doing some work.
I want the Master Sword. I have it set to be the usual 13.
Bro, that was a 90k
requirement.
Bennett. Okay, I'm gonna rely on Ayaka's burst here, because ain't no way I'm gonna
But
break
it's
that
still
shield.
actually a challenge to get it.
Damn, that Baron Bunny range though. Wait, this is the first half. What the hell? There we go. I only have like 1 minute left for this. Okay, I believe in Raiden. 30 seconds. Okay, samurai guys. This dude's gonna die. Fuck, man. Oh wait. Nice, he's not dead yet. Never mind. Dang, I didn't even see the damage again. Oh wait, I don't have enough time though. Okay, we'll take the L on this one. Yeah, no 3 stars here. Yeah, okay, yeah, 2 stars. Definitely not skill issue. I blame Baron Bunny. How many stars do you guys think I'm gonna get here? So I feel like I'm gonna get maybe 6 stars total for floor 12. Where the hell is Sucrose? Oh wait, I already had her. What? Bruh. When will Genshin add like a search feature for this? Imagine scrolling through 100 characters just based off of their icons. Maybe this was an Ayaka showcase all along. I'm gonna need a lot of headshots for the montage so I could make Amber look good. There's no way I'm getting 36 stars here. They're about at the same HP. Bro, we have to kill them at the same time. Let's do Baron Bunny damage, maybe. No! What the fuck? Just kill him, please.
I wonder if the Blight Ganon's got new
Okay.
music.
Thank goodness, dude.
New
Actually,
boss
1
music.
star? Damn, bro, Baron Bunny's actually useless here. I don't think these mobs are attracted to Baron Bunny. Baron
I
Bunny's
swear
not
this is
thick
the
enough
last
for them.
time I'm going
Baron
to
Bunny,
change
please.
anything.
It's your
in
time to
BCN
shine.
now.
Sheesh. 64k. Let's do another Baron Bunny. Boink. 12k. Boom. Yeah, I don't think this is gonna be 2 stars. This is 1 star for sure. Everyone's actually on life support. And Venti's dead. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to replace Venti. Let's swap Venti and Sucrose. Maybe I could add Xingqiu? Okay, let's go
Wow, our
Xingqiu then.
boobs sure got
Magu
smaller.
Kenki likes to be cornered like this. Gotta pin him to the wall so he doesn't move around. That's Magu Kenki's kink. Oh wow, actually 2 stars. Better than I expected. Last chamber? Let's fucking go. I can finally be free. Yo! 36k. I don't think that was a melt too. That was just pure Baron Bunny damage there. Yeah, this is looking like a 2-star run. It has to be Amber to deal the last damage though. Yo, that would have been perfect if they died there. Let's make Amber deal the final blow. Joink. Nice. Yeah, this is over. Boom. Alright, it's finally done. How many stars was that? Yeah, that was 5 stars. So in total that was -1, -4, so 31 stars. That was not too bad. That's Amber Showcase, Budget Yoimiya, for the algorithm. Goodbye. Amber really underrated. Her kit is probably the weakest in all of Genshin. I mean, it's understandable, she's like the first character you get. This is probably the best EM substat on a Dendro artifact you'll see today, but it's
I've
actually
already
not
watched this,
mine.
wife.
It's a viewer's art.
What does the history tell me I haven't yet?
Consideration at all. Most zoners are actually a mix of zoning and not necessarily rushdown, but definitely some kind of close range aggression. As well as making for a better spectator experience, I think it's also easier to balance. Pure zoning just has little place in modern fighting games unless you want to deal with another blob. That's why even the most basic bread and butter new 13 combos had to go. You can't play your whole game full screen now. From her drive, the only thing that combos is now Act Passer Blade. In ways, this move is a replacement for the old Sickle Storm. On hits, it'll send the opponent away so that you can keep zoning, but what about on block? I don't need to describe how this is a drastically different position to this when you're a zoner. But sometimes this is where you want to be now. The new Sickle Storm and Act Passers are all designed to get you there, and the new Gravity Seed is good for your combos when you are here. But what exactly do you do when you're here? If New 13 was all you ever knew, then you may not really have a clue. Lambda isn't as simple as new. There's more to learn, and you have to learn it because you can't get by on only one playstyle. You need to know how to zone, but now you also need to understand how to pressure someone who's actually within range of smacking you. You have to learn stagger pressure, you have to learn when to bait DPs, and you have to learn how to do Tiger Knees. Do you even know what a Tiger Knee is? Lambda 11 was the character that taught me how to Tiger Knee, on the PSP of all things, where they released BlazBlue Continuum Shift 2. Yeah, she changed in this version of the game as well. Gravity Seed is not a DP in BlazBlue Continuum Shift 2.
I have to.
Then they made BlazBlue Continuum Shift
Lionel.
Extend. To be honest, we don't need to do this one. Thankfully they don't do this anymore, but BlazBlue Continuum Shift Extend was one of the greedier old fighting game releases, following a trend where you sell your players the same game at full price for a balance patch and some additional characters. Oh, did I say characters as in plural? In the case of BlazBlue Continuum Shift Extend, there was only one new character, Relius, and the balance patch didn't do anything crazy enough for me to talk about Lambda 11 in length here. Yes, all of her combo routes changed, but that's the BlazBlue standard. It's a frustrating but hilarious signature of the series. It doesn't compare to going from anti-trigger to Continuum Shift and discovering that every single special move works differently. Except Spike Chaser, which will never, ever change. Could Arxis have done this a better way? A way that didn't rewrite half of her moveset?
I wonder who this person is.
She is what she is now. I just hope that these adjustments don't have unforeseen
Also, this really doesn't look
way
that bad.
down the line.
Please select your character.
If I had the belt and the base model, this might be a little
God
ruined.
damn it, they replaced her again. For this game, Lambda 11 has been evicted, and the original Menace is
Yeah.
back.
The little
But did her
short
moveset come with it?
pairs well enough with the Zora armor.
Yes. We're back to where we started. The old Sickle Storm, the old Act Farser, Gravity Seed still
I
has a
guess that
cooldown,
works
but
well
you can't be
enough, too.
surprised about that. Even her old bread and butter combo made a return. Lambda who? We don't talk about that. Let's watch some 9-year-old footage of me zoning someone. Ah, PS3 error. I couldn't afford a capture card, sorry. But it's still better quality than Japanese arcade footage, so you'll live. Yep, standard new 13 game plan. Knock him down, let Spike Chaser cover the ground, you cover the air. Nice, the old Sickle Storm is back. You can zone with it like you used to. I don't remember being, like, decent. Oh, wow. I was kind of okay. I was okay at this game. Nice, got him with the go-to mix-up. Okay, let's go me. Wait, what is that? Wait. Is that the old Sickle Storm? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Let's pump it up.
New 13 is the Blaze Blue Zoner. With her drive, Sword Summoner, she'll harass you with swords no matter where you are on the screen, but when it's necessary,
There's no Lizalfos
she'll switch
here,
forms,
that's so weird.
changing the properties of every single special move, even the ones that look the same, and transforming her into a
and it's
rushdown
cold
machine.
now, apparently.
Because of Blaze Blue's story, New 13 is back, and her return inspired Arxis to bring back her own moves as well. But, if you bring those back, what happens to all the moves that your players spent 3 versions learning? We started this series with one moveset, then you made it something else, and for 3 versions, that is what we made ourselves embrace, because we had to. If Chrono Phantasma came around and Arxis suddenly reverted
Bruh,
the
I think
moveset back
fighting
to
the Lionel
Calamity
would be a
Trigger
little
without
hard with
any
this.
trace of Lambda in there, yeah, no, someone would have to be fired. I really wonder how much coordination there was between the story writers and the battle planners, because the situation Arxis put themselves in for Chrono Phantasma is a little funny. Imagine the battle planners did all that stuff to Nu when she became Lambda purely for the sake of balance. Then, for Chrono Phantasma, director Mori and the story writers go, okay, Lambda is out, Nu is back,
Oh my.
bring back her old moveset. And now you're sitting there as a battle planner like, I have to find a way to switch all of her special moves back again without pissing off all the Lambda players because you decided to get
Alright, so
wacky
they
in the
go for
story?
attacker defense.
Fuck this job. Now, Mori could have been working on both. This scenario is completely made up. However, the dilemma it presents is true. How do you bring back New 13 while keeping the players that embraced Lambda 11 happy? Remember that these are literally the same players. Do you make the hard decision and sacrifice every trace of Lambda 11, forcing her players to start over yet again? Well, of course not. For Chrono Phantasma, they stuffed 2 characters into one and gave her the ability to switch between each version during the match. This way, everyone wins and everyone's happy. Unfortunately, this made everyone unhappy. New 13 is the character we're playing as, but Lambda 11 is far from dead. She's with us in spirit, and you'll know whenever that spirit has taken the wheel because there'll be a halo above New 13. That's called Luniform, which is basically Lambda mode, and the original moveset without the halo is called Diaform, which is basically New 13 mode. This is a mode change character now, and you can't do well pretending that she isn't. Despite the impression that my round against the second slowest character in the game might have given you, you can't stick to one form throughout the match if you want to succeed. Arxis blatantly made this version of Nu with the vision that she'd mode change throughout the match. This is most evident with her supers.
3 minutes should be enough.
Calamity Sword is an extremely important super for Nu. Excluding whatever Arxis was doing in Continuum Shift 1, Nu 13's only reversal has always been Calamity Sword.
Oh
You
god.
need this for the situation that every new player always ends up in. You're cornered and you can't get out. If you've got 50 meter in the gauge, Calamity Sword is your out. Without it, this character would be miserable on defense. In BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, Nu 13 doesn't have Calamity Sword. At least, not in Dia form. She can only use Calamity Sword in Lunar form, and Lunar form can't use her other super, Legacy Edge. We get it, Arxis. Dia form is for long range and Lunar form is for close range. You couldn't be more obvious, but was separating these supers across different forms really necessary? The obvious consequence of mode change is that it complicates some of her combo routes, and trust me, her combo routes are now very complicated. But the most irritating consequence of this convoluted design is the absolute helplessness that I am overcome with whenever the opponent is on top of me and I have 50 meter, but I can't reversal with it because I'm stuck in goddamn Dia form, and someone thought it would be super cool if we split the supers up into
Where did
different
you guys
forms.
come from?
When Arxis introduced mode change to Nu 13, anything simple about the character immediately got thrown out of the window. Her
You know
moveset
what?
is
Fuck
huge.
this.
All of her combos change depending on whatever form you start in. Her supers are split. Her game plan is still a blend of zoning and rushdown like it had been for Lambda 11, but now you also need to keep track of what form you're in at any given time. Like, did I even want the Lunar version of Sickle Storm here? Even her new special move, something range, super range, let's call it Flash Kick. Even her new special move, the Flash Kick, is unnecessarily complicated. You don't use this on Wake Up, by the way, it's not a reversal. In Dia form, it's pretty useless in combos, but it does make for a great anti-air that you can start a combo from. However, in Lunar form, the Flash Kick loses head and vulnerability, making it a much worse anti-air that you also can't combo from because they hit the ground faster. However, that's also what makes it a fantastic combo ender, so it is still useful in combos, but like in a completely different position.
Okay,
It's a lot to keep track of, like how you need to keep track of the fact that Gravity Seed will combo in Lunar form but doesn't combo at all in Dia form. Or that in Dia form, Spike Chaser is a zoning tool, but in Lunar form, it's strictly a combo tool. Or that you can feint Crescent Saber in Dia form, but you can't feint it in Lunar form. Which is funny, because Lunar form's rushdown is probably where you want it the most. This character is beyond bloated. Do you remember how I described Nu 13 back in Calamity Trigger? Nu 13 is simple. Her toolkit is strong and her game plan is intuitive. Yeah, well, she's become the absolute opposite of that. In BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, Nu 13 is hard to learn. Her toolkit is bloated and her game plan is convoluted. At the time, people were largely split on the mode change idea. Many players hated it, though I do remember being in the minority of people who actually enjoyed it. That was probably because I was a 13-year-old that didn't care about competitive play. I did play to improve and I did enter tournaments, but I wasn't thinking about what was best for the character competitively. I was thinking about what would keep the character interesting for me. I was having fun, and I was really young, so those flashy, out-there ideas always won me over, regardless of their impact on competitive play. But upon review, it's clear as day that mode change was a bit much. There's no other way I could put it. I was lucky because I had years of experience with both Nu 13 and Lambda 11 separately before their unholy fusion for Chrono Phantasma. But getting the hang of this new form was still hard, and I intimately understood where the two characters differed. However, for players who didn't have all that history, and didn't have all of the information you've been receiving throughout this video, Nu 13 must have been incredibly intimidating. If anybody watching this happened to learn her in Chrono Phantasma, I really applaud you. Even I dropped her as my main for the first time ever and became a total Kagura stan. But I also wonder, how does it feel? How does it feel knowing you put all of that time into learning Nu 13, only for Arc System Works to completely overhaul the character again in the next game? Like, these guys are ruthless. 1 year after Chrono Phantasma, Arc System Works released Chrono Phantasma Extend.
Wow, I did not know
Again, 2 new characters and a balance patch at the price of a full game. At least this time we actually did get 2 new challenges rather than only the 1. Chrono Phantasma Extend introduced Celica A. Mercury and Lambda 11. Yes, they really did advertise Lambda 11 as one of the 2 new challengers joining the roster. Are you confused? It's not complicated, it's just hard to believe. It is hard to believe that Arc System Works were bold enough to call her a new character. She isn't new, she's recycled, but because New 13 stuck around this time, and they've given Lambda 11 this fancy, completely ugly aura, they believe they can justify promoting her as a brand new addition. Lambda 11 is merely New 13's lunar form as a separate character, while New 13 permanently plays like a super buffed version of her Dia form. In a Famitsu interview, Arxis explained that New 13's modes were separated into different characters due to the difficulty of mode change. I can attest, New 13 in Chrono Phantasma with her mode change was bloody difficult. Mode change works when it's given to a character during early concept. It doesn't quite stick when you try to attach it to a pre-existing character as some kind of fix-all problems duct tape. Splitting them up is a good decision.
I don't think...
Absolutely no clue how this impacted BlazBlue story, though. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. The interview also explained that Lambda 11 will be simple and much less technical, while New 13 will be given many new tools so that she can remain complex even without mode change. Sure enough, New 13 was given many tools. Far too many, but before we look at them, I think there's a statement I need to revise. When it comes to gameplay, Lambda 11 and New 13 are the same character, the same zoner. I want to make this very clear. Lambda is not a different character. She's just a palette swap caused by BlazBlue story. Okay, fine, I guess that's no longer true, but I didn't count on Arxis being this experimental and messing with the character until they really did split into 2. As of Chrono Phantasma Extend, Lambda 11 and New 13 are officially different characters. The worst thing about this split is that I now have to pick between what character to play. See, every change Arc System Works makes with this character just keeps having unforeseen consequences that just lead to more annoyance. Granted, I'll take this over the complicated, convoluted character she became in the last version, but this is still a little bit of a headache. I think New 13 was doomed to be a headache ever since she was conceived. We're at Chrono Phantasma Extend now, the 3rd series entry and the 6th version of the game. New 13 players, Lambda 11 players, whatever we call ourselves, who are we picking? Lambda 11 is the rushdown zoner of BlazBlue. With her drive, Sword Summoner EX, she'll control space and lock you down, then with the rest of her toolkit she'll transition into rushdown. New 13 is the zoner of BlazBlue. In a return to form, her emphasis on pure zoning and evasion allows her to be a threat in every area of the screen. Okay, so, to be very explicit, Lambda 11 undeniably got the short end of the stick.
The early morning
As intended, Lambda is the simpler of the pair and is much easier to learn. Players that experienced New 13 in the first Chrono Phantasma wouldn't need to do much learning at all, because Lambda is very close to her lunar form, and it's to the point where I genuinely have little to say. She got a new angle to her air drives, but the same applies to New 13. She lost that flash kick, but she gained a new special move called Exiganel? Eshiganel? It's strange. It has invulnerability on startup, so it could be used like a reversal. But in actuality, the length of invulnerability is so small that it is very unreliable. Eshiganel's best use is as a way to bait foes. The rest of Lambda's differences are very in your face, like this really unflattering aura and the aesthetic change to her drive. Can we talk about that? Her drive? Because I have a problem with it. New and Lambda have had a signature drive combo for years. It's one of my favorite parts of the character, and one of my favorite combos in fighting games, period. There aren't many combos more satisfying than bouncing the opponent around with a legion of swords while New counts up in German and you juggle the opponent higher and higher. This is some cool ass shit, you cannot deny that. That's not even mentioning the addictive rhythm of the combo. Listen to me bashing my stick really loudly so you... Whoa. I wrote that. Listen to me bashing my stick really loudly so you can hear what I mean. sounds a bit like the indicator on a car, which is fitting because New 13's special moves are like a bunch of references to race cars. But Lambda's drives have been altered in a way that ruins some of that
I
combo
still can't
magic.
use.
I'll play the clip of New doing that combo again, and then I'll play a clip of me doing the same combo with Lambda. See if you can spot the two differences.
That one. Holy shit. Here we go. Oh shit.
何度でも助けるぞ。あの氷を壊すんだ。
You know, it would actually help if you stood still,
元気の矢は頼むぞ。
Sidon. I forgot to switch to my shock arrows.
リンク、やったぞ。リンク、一度。あの氷を止めれば。リンク、電気の矢だ。ああ。飛べ。リンク、最高だ。
Come on.
リンク、さすがだ。
See if you can spot the two differences. One, Lambda's drive attacks do their follow-ups automatically, and this changes the rhythm of the combo. Instead of sounding like a car indicator, it sounds like Britney Spears. 2. My actual problem with Lambda's altered drive. It's how much worse the hits look. Everyone I've talked to about this swears they can't see a difference, but I know I'm not crazy. Lambda's drives have far less bounce. Every single sword sent by New bounces the opponent in a new direction, which really makes this combo feel like a deadly dance. Half of Lambda's swords freeze the opponent in place, and it just isn't as satisfying. But it's a difference that you definitely feel more than you see. And I have nothing else to say about Lambda 11. Easy to transition into from Chrono Phantasma, but needs more than what she currently has. New 13, on the other hand, changed a lot. Lucky for her, her changes were all about adding special moves and features rather than reworking existing ones, so New 13 wasn't an entirely new and daunting moveset to have to learn all over again. No, she's just DMO'd, except now she can special cancel a bunch of moves into one another, sometimes even on whiff. Her zoning is nutty in extent. New could blockstring 4 different drive attacks together, 8 if you include each one's optional follow-up, and her drive is like a pseudo long-range wrecker. Gravity Seed now cancels into any other special move, even on whiff, which is a very strong aid to her zoning, and any hits that New lands from long range can be converted into scarily high damage. Her other biggest change is to Calamity Sword. I already emphasized its importance and how the lack of access to it in DM mode felt like a catastrophic
Battle
situation to
music
be
here is
in.
the same.
But the good
Oh, that's
news is, Calamity Sword is back permanently. The bad news is that they've artificially given it a gaping dead zone in front of New that is pretty easy
Oh,
for
wow.
the opponent to avoid. Calamity Sword may be back, but it's not the defensive tool that it once was. And that covers Chrono Phantasma Extend. What I find fascinating about this situation, these two characters existing together in this game, is how they're able to go back and trace how the hell we got here. You can go back to Calamity Trigger and see how every decision that was made was slowly, though unintentionally, leading up to this split. New became Lambda, and though I'm sure BlazBlue's story is responsible for the different name and color palette, the moveset changed because keeping New 13's pure zoning style was detrimental to the game. So, Lambda was a zoner who also did Rushdown. Then New 13 came back, and so did her original moveset with some tweaks. Things could have been simple, but Arxis understandably didn't want to throw away the moveset that they'd had people play for 3 different versions. So, they crammed 2 movesets into one and created a brand new mode-changing abomination. Now, everyone's unhappy, and mode change is too difficult. So, Arxis splits the modes into 2 separate characters where New 13 and Lambda 11 now coexist in the same game. A question that BlazBlue players commonly hear is, what's the difference between New 13 and Lambda 11? It's so frequently asked that there's a table on Dustloop Wiki detailing the differences between the two. That table will tell you what's the difference, but knowing this character's history will tell you why the difference. Alright, we've been through a lot, and truthfully, we've reached the point in New 13 Saga that inspired me to make this video. We've reached the split, and we've uncovered how we got here, how Arxis and Bugs messed with the characters so much that they became 2. It's done. The video is over. But BlazBlue doesn't end here. There is one more game in the series. We've made it this far, we may as well finish it. Just don't expect a detailed analysis.
Please select your character.
BlazBlue Central Fiction is the last game in the series. New 13 Saga has been full of twists and turns, but this is the end of the road. What you see here is what you get. The current New 13 and the current Lambda 11. We'll begin with New 13, the original. Off the bat, New 13 is entering this game in a situation similar to Calamity Trigger. She's too strong. Only this time they can't nerf her by turning her into Lambda 11, because Lambda now exists separately in this series. New received a lot of general nerfs. Increased recovery on drives, decreased chip, her general damage is lower,
What the
and
heck is
properties of
Chica's
some
skill?
moves changed. But the biggest change, and arguably the biggest nerf of all, is the loss of one iconic move. Spike Chaser. Rest in peace, Spike Chaser. The wonderful Spike Chaser has been replaced by a new special move called Luminous Slave. New can summon a sword from above her that will track and fire to wherever the opponent is, though the tracking is often wrong. This move alone has 3 versions, one that fires instantly, one that fires slightly later but has less recovery, and one that doesn't fire at all until you press the drive button. Luminous Slave is a fun new move that quickly became pivotal to New's moveset. It serves as a combo tool, an additional zoning tool, and most especially, a set play tool. The match footage can speak for itself, but the ability to delay Luminous Slave's fire until you tap the drive button allowed for new mix-ups and combos. But was it worth it? Was it worth Spike Chaser? New 13 definitely has a better set play game with Luminous Slave than she did with Spike Chaser, but the loss of Spike Chaser was a massive hit to her zoning game. The importance of Luminous Slave meant that new players were forced to relearn several aspects of their character yet again. Every block string, every combo, every knockdown, all of them use Luminous Slave. But if you could get used to that, 13 still felt familiar, which is a huge achievement at this point. She's just, a lot worse. Trash now? Maybe not trash, but she's a lot weaker. Replacing a special move is nothing compared to changing the properties of every existing one, or incorporating an entirely new mode change mechanic. But I still avoided this character the moment I found out she lost Spike Chaser. Screw that. Then we have the final version of Lambda 11. Lambda also only really had a few changes, but they are pretty good ones. She didn't use any special moves, and instead she gained two new ones that are both attached to Act Passer. So, Act Passer, at least Lambda's version of it, was already very important to her. But the further adjustments it received made it character-defining. They now operate like a regular series, as one version can chain into another. One of the new follow-ups is an overhead too, and these changes gave Lambda the additional help on Rushdown that she so desperately needed. Her game plan is the same. Her special moves operate in a very similar manner. All she did was get some new tools to help her out. Unfortunately, her drive combos are still horribly ugly, but at least she doesn't need to use them as much as V13. And Arxis were kind enough to finally let her drive attacks combo into each other at long range. But, unlike V13, Lambda still can't enforce a good mix-up while staying long range. And I think that's how it should be. Nu can treat her drive attacks like a Wrecker series even on block. She'll mix you up, wore you out, and win the game without ever approaching, if you let her. Lambda has the same drive, but their limitations are sending a clear message. You can use these buttons for space control, but eventually you'll use her other tools to cover your approach and mix them up at close range. That's the clearest and most concise way I can describe the difference between the two. But you could always refer to that dust loop table if you want a more detailed explanation. But that's it. This is where the video ends. I've been a Hibiki main throughout this game, but for this video I went back to my roots and learned Nu 13. After playing over 100 matches, I can safely say I don't like her. At all. I don't like her. She's too much effort. I want the fun mode change version back.
Bruh.
Naruto holds a place in the hearts of millions. It saw immense success and was even crowned as one of the big three anime for dominating the medium at the time. But Naruto has long since ended. It's been replaced by a spin-off called Boruto, which is doing fine, but the Naruto title and its impact on a generation of anime fans is irreplaceable. Such popularity inevitably expands the series into new types of entertainment, like, say, video games, where you can now play as the characters you've been watching this entire time. Fighting games are a particularly suitable genre for an action-packed series like Naruto, and there are many Naruto fighting games out there. One series of Naruto fighting games is far more popular than all the others. The Ultimate Ninja Storm series began in 2008 as an extension of the Ultimate Ninja series that began in 2003. The developers, CyberConnect 2, made it clear that the first Storm game was about removing the boundaries between anime and video game, and, as IGN puts it,
The main goal of Ultimate Ninja Storm is to bring all the slick action of the Naruto series to people of all skill levels. The result is a very approachable fighting game that uses a simpler control scheme to pull off awesome-looking moves.
In other words, it was designed to be simple and easy, a casual fighting game. However, as the series progressed, CyberConnect 2 began to care more and more about creating a fighting game that is competitively viable. By the time of Naruto Shippuden and Ultimate Ninja Storm Revolution, the CEO of CyberConnect 2, Hiroshi Matsuyama, had this to say about the game.
I need fairies. I'm getting out of here for now.
Here's the thing though, I've spent over a decade in the fighting game community. I've been on the forums, I've traveled and played in tournaments, and I've met hundreds of players. I'm engrossed in the scene, borderline raised in it. So I know damn well the fighting game community doesn't see Ultimate Ninja Storm as a fighting game. I haven't even seen this game at a tournament. Like once. Not once have I ever seen this game at a tournament.
Early like
I'm being
this.
serious.
Didn't know
I've
the
seen
raid
the fighting
stopped
game community
already.
play rhythm games, puzzle games, sports games, and even Beyblade, but never Ultimate Ninja Storm. What's the deal? Why does this fighting game, under one of the biggest IPs in anime, receive no attention from the fighting game community? Well, it's an arena fighter. Arena fighters are a subgenre of fighting games known for having 3D environments that characters can freely move around in, as opposed to the more restricted movement of traditional 3D fighters. But the fighting game community doesn't take arena fighters seriously, and for good reason. This subgenre has an ugly history. So many arena fighters are low-effort cash grabs, while the few decent ones out there often don't meet the standards of a competitive fighting game. Skill and decision-making often take a backseat to straight button mashing. It's pretty much expected of the fighting game community, who historically haven't been very open to different fighting game formats, to give a game like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm no real attention.
What was I gonna do?
It's an arena fighter. It's not worth your while. Even though the Storm series is one of Bandai Namco's best sellers, a fighting game tournament is more likely to have people playing Clash of Ninja 4, a game that was released in 2005 instead of Storm. Clash of Ninja is more in line with what a competitive fighting game is expected to look like, alongside having the credibility of being developed by A-Team, the same developers behind popular fighting game community titles such as Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and Dungeon Fighter Duel. The most attention I've ever seen this game receive from anything to do with the fighting game community was when Bandai Namco Esports paid popular fighting game commentators, Sajam and Tasty Steve, to commentate in a couple of tournaments shortly after the game was released. The pair were entertaining, as always, but it was clear that Storm isn't a game they're very familiar with.
It's definitely one of the better systems. Yeah, any of the big fireballs, like Itachi, Sasuke, take up so much space on the screen. Samara also. Yeah, Samara also. And then Almighty Push with another one.
The fighting game community won't acknowledge competitive Storm, but Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm does have a dedicated competitive scene. There are players constantly pushing the meta, cash prize tournaments being run, and there's even a community mod players use to make the game more competitive. I spent my teenage years playing many of the different Storm games, but I never viewed the series as competitive. After all, I was playing it alongside games that had a larger and, to be frank, noticeable competitive scene, like Guilty Gear. Even without those games to focus on for a competitive outlet, the mechanics of Storm were so detached from what is typically valued in a competitive fighting game that I assumed that the series was disqualified from ever having a real competitive scene anyway. What's up guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to do the pre-Shippuden Naruto BNB. To make the combo easier to learn, I'm just going to do a live notation side by side with the combo. Right, so let's do this. And there you have it. Recently, I went back to the Storm series. It's not like I wanted to play it, I just wanted to see what the latest Storm videos on YouTube looked like. I was pleasantly surprised to find a community that made competitive Ultimate Ninja Storm actually look competitive, and fun too. I'm not gonna say that the game was secretly great all along just because players made themselves a competitive scene. People will do that for just about anything because competition itself is fun. I don't think Ultimate Ninja Storm is the new Smash Bros. Of the fighting game community, where it's disrespected and branded a party game despite having a tremendous amount of depth. Arena fighters are not the new platform fighters. However, I think Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm is a fun and competitive fighting game. As I said before, I don't ever see this game at competitive fighting game events, even as a side tournament. The stigma around arena fighters in the fighting game community is huge and kind of deserved. But should its status as an arena fighter really be enough to make everyone avoid it? We had bloody Catherine at EVO. Catherine! And the reason they had it there was because it was a fun side game. Why not have it? Storm players don't necessarily need the fighting game community either, and they don't seem desperate to cement their place within it. They're happy playing a game they like, and it makes me happy to see how far they've taken the game. But I love fighting game tournaments, and I really liked the Storm series growing up. I just want to thoroughly understand what it is about the Storm series that stops it from having a place in the fighting game community, without simply dismissing it as, it's an arena fighter, therefore it's worthless. What we're going to do in this video is take a deep dive into the series, analysing the mechanics of each game and how competitive they've been. By the end of this video, you'll be able to understand what's happening during a high-level
I don't know
Storm
why,
4
but whenever I
match.
see that
We'll see how
I
the
want to
Ultimate
sell
Ninja Storm
dialogue,
series developed
I always
over the
imagine
years into a
Link
game that managed
going,
to birth
I
its
want
own
to
competitive
sell!
scene. And trust me, it developed
I
a
don't
lot,
understand
because
it
the
either.
first Ultimate Ninja Storm game was, well,
It doesn't really make
Let's get
sense
into it.
considering Link doesn't
it
sound
is
like
with
that, but
extraordinary confidence that I can tell
maybe
you.
Link might
Naruto
say
Ultimate
something
Ninja Storm
like
1 is not a competitive fighting
that.
game.
No.
I would hesitate to even call it a fun fighting game, though at the time, I'm sure it was. First, a brief description of this series' staple mechanics. Everyone has 4 different combo strings, but they're all performed by continuously hitting one button while holding a chosen direction. Like most fighting games, you have your health gauge and your meter gauge, or as it's called in this game, the chakra gauge. The chakra gauge is how you'll perform many of your more powerful moves. Jutsus, for example, are a character's unique special move that costs a decent chunk of chakra. Ultimate jutsus are like super moves that cost an even bigger amount of chakra. You'll also use your chakra gauge for chakra dashes and chakra shurikens, which is basically the universal projectile. At the bottom of the screen are your ninja tools. They're not majorly important, but they're decently useful items with varying purposes, like a speed or damage buff, or some delayed kunai explosion. They're also the reason you shouldn't play this game with an arcade stick, since you access these items with the D-pad. In the Storm series, you'll also have supports that aid you in battle by jumping in with their own jutsu when you call them. In this game, you're required to have at least one support, and you can have up to 2. In later games, 1v1 battles are possible, but fighting with supports is pretty integral to the Storm series. Okay, with that out of the way, I just have to mention, this game is so beautiful, especially for its time. Even as I strain to play this game in 2022, I can clearly feel the love and creativity that the developers put into this game.
Really nice.
Look at these beautiful ultimate jutsus. Unfortunately though, the mechanics suck. The first major issue with the gameplay is the neutral. Neutral in Ultimate Ninja Storm 1 is a myth. There's all this area to move around in, but trust me, this neutral lacks any depth. You have this 3-dimensional plane to work with, but it's completely filler. You just meaninglessly run around in it until one player chakra dashes at the other. Chakra dash is a homing dash that costs a little bit of chakra. If you know about Dragon Ball FighterZ, it's quite similar to Super Dash. This is your only sane approach option, since it's supremely better than everything else and doesn't cost much to use. It's also near impossible to sidestep, whereas everything else in this game is ludicrously easy to sidestep. Chakra Dash is a series staple that is still around in the most recent game, but the issue with it in this game is how powerful it is. There is little counterplay against Chakra Dash. It goes right through regular projectiles, so the only way of stopping it is with powerful, costly jutsus like a little fireball jutsu. But even that's
Okay, they
basically
definitely made
impossible.
it so that fall
Chakra Dash has
damage
virtually no startup
happens
frames
way
and
more
travels
often.
incredibly fast, whereas a jutsu
You
has
require
a
way
lot of
less
startup
height.
frames before
That's
any
so
hitbox is
stupid.
active. Nobody can counter Chakra Dash with a jutsu on reaction. So if you want to beat Chakra Dash, your jutsu needs to be preemptive by
I
a good
don't
margin.
think anyone
You thought Dragon Ball FighterZ Super Dash was bad. As far as counterplay goes, this is the least
wanted
enjoyable kind. It has little to do with understanding and outplaying your opponent, and more to do with getting lucky on a guess. And another reason you should just hit Chakra Dash is because even if the opponent guards it, you have no recovery and immediately start your turn anyway. Which is pretty damn ridiculous. If
You're
you're familiar
joking.
with the concept of risk-reward in fighting games, I can assure you that it doesn't exist here. Chakra Dash is very little risk, but gives you all the reward. This is your neutral. Chakra Dash. It doesn't get any deeper than that. There's no effective counterplay. If you're busy thinking of Chakra Dashing, you're doing it wrong. Just Chakra Dash your way to victory. I promise, it'll work. Speedrun the neutral into close quarters combat. And speaking of which, the close
Dang it,
quarters combat isn't
I
very
blame
good
Tori.
either. Offense and
I don't wanna
defense are
talk to him
boring
right
because
now.
your decision making has no influence on it. Offense here is
I'm too
simply
lazy to
mashing
tell him
auto
I don't wanna
combos,
talk.
which, contrary
So
to
I'm just
popular
gonna
belief,
ghost.
isn't the case in later games. Defense is almost the same, it's functionally just button mashing, but it's particularly evil for fooling everyone into believing that better mashing equals better defense, when the truth is, it's all luck. I'll explain. Defensive options in Storm games are nothing like what you see in other fighting games. Here's where I'll introduce another series staple. It's called Substitution, and it's truly pathetic in this game. Substitution is a technique that is available to you when you're in hit stun or guarding. When you substitute, you'll teleport behind your opponent. If you're far away, you'll teleport upwards, but that doesn't really matter since you almost always want to use substitution when you're getting melee attacked. This is your only way of escaping a melee auto combo. You'll be relying on this as your singular lifeline against Chakra Dash into combos, but it's an awful lifeline to be stuck with, because substitution is performed by pressing guard or the left shoulder button right before a move hits you. And you know, I've seen similar timing-based mechanics in fighting games before, and it works in other games because it feels consistent no matter how tight the timing may be. In Ultimate Ninja Storm, getting a successful substitute is ridiculously inconsistent, and you'll find no success in intentionally fishing for one. Like, the timing to activate substitution might be literal RNG. I genuinely don't know, but at this point, I think it might be RNG. I wouldn't be surprised if it were. You're 100% better off mashing both substitution buttons as fast as possible. Sometimes that'll work, but sometimes you'll be left to helplessly watch your character eat a full combo, wondering why the substitution gods ignored your call. But if you can substitute, so can your opponent. When you substitute and start hitting them, they'll substitute and start hitting you. Then you'll substitute again and start hitting them again. Then they'll substitute again and start hitting you again. That's the loop. I've got to say, it looks a bit funny when the substitution relay is happening, but as a gameplay feature, it's poorly implemented. Even if it technically requires input from the player and technically tests their timing, the mechanic feels automatic. There is no point during hitting an opponent or being hit by your opponent that you're making a real decision here. On both ends, there are no options to consider. You needn't consider that the opponent might substitute your combo because you have no counterplay against it anyway. Almost every attack button has large recovery frames and no cancel options, so you have no way of defending yourself from a substitution, followed by an attack. Substitution is also a shockingly low chakra cost, so you may as well just press the buttons. The obstacle in your way isn't whether or not the opponent can predict it, but whether you can mash hard enough to get it to work, which is boring. It's boring because you're not fighting the opponent, you're fighting the mechanics. Garbage design. This is not a competitive fighting game. Chakra Dash and Substitution make that clear enough, but I assure you, there are other mechanics present that hinder this game's chances at competitive viability, like Ultimate Jutsus. These aren't difficult to land, which is a strange decision by itself. There are times where I'll be playing and then suddenly I'm in an Ultimate Jutsu clash without even realizing how it hit me. The actual challenge kicks in after someone lands an Ultimate Jutsu, because then a clash begins. You and your opponent have to outmash each other to a sequence of random buttons. If you land an Ultimate Jutsu but lose the mash fest to your opponent, the cutscene ends prematurely and you don't get the damage. On the other hand, if you win the mash fest, you'll get the full damage and a beautiful cutscene. The Ultimate Jutsu Clash is the only justification I can think of for letting some of these jutsus hit so easily, but the clash itself is a bad idea. I don't hate the idea of meshing to get out of things, although I think a lot of the fighting game community does, but I'm not exactly an advocate for it either. This just feels awful. In my eyes, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 1 has next to no competitive merit.
Guys, I only
Then
really
there's
have one
Ultimate
chance
Ninja
of getting
Storm
key.
2.
At the very least.
And there's Ultimate Ninja Storm 2.
This world shall know pain.
The fun fact about this one is that Lars from Tekken 6 is part of the roster, and because of this, Lars Tekken will forever be on the Naruto wiki. A 2010 interview with the president of CyberConnect 2, Hiroshi Matsuyama, reveals why Lars is even here. He said, I saw an article in the Shonen Jump magazine in Japan which said that Kishimoto Sensei was designing the costume for Lars for the console versions of Tekken 6. The moment I saw that article, I thought it would be great to see him in Storm 2. Then I saw the costume design for Lars and my thoughts changed to, we have to get him in Storm 2. In Bandai Namco's announcement that Lars will be part of the roster, they said that Lars brings his explosive signature moves to the game's versus mode, which will add new depth and dimension to the overall experience. Well, this is obvious PR word salad, but is there new depth and dimension to Storm 2? Storm 2 did make changes that signify a step in the right direction. First, Chakra Dash. There's now a few frames of startup to Chakra Dash, which is appreciated against such a strong approach tool with excellent tracking. The jutsus a person may use to try and beat Chakra Dash now have more time to actually come out. Players are also now given more time to react to Chakra Dash with a guard, which has also changed. If you guard Chakra Dash, you and your opponent now bounce away from each other and reset to neutral. This doesn't fix everything, unless you're as predictable as a training dummy and the opponent using you
I forgot to use my
Chakra Dash
backup.
is still very low risk,
Whatever.
and there's little reason not to spam it. However, at least now guarding a Chakra Dash doesn't instantly put you in a disadvantageous situation. This change was the first step to fixing the Chakra Dash and is a huge improvement over what it was before. But it's still very bad. The second change I'll quickly highlight is with the Ultimate Jutsus. They're now a lot more akin to your traditional fighting game circles. Attempting one will immediately cost a good chunk of chakra gauge. And when you do it, there is now a screen freeze, or what the fighting game community more commonly knows as a super flash, to warn the opponent that a powerful attack is coming. And finally, if you successfully hit the Ultimate Jutsu, that's it. There's no longer a mashing mini-game to determine whether the Ultimate Jutsu will fail or not. I think this way of implementing Ultimate Jutsus functions a lot better. Landing an Ultimate Jutsu is now determined by whether you can create an opening for it, as opposed to the biggest determining factor being how good you are at mashing that day, like it was before. These were decent gameplay adjustments that indicated that CyberConnect 2 cared at least a bit about improving mechanics for a more enjoyable game. It was a start, but they still tripped themselves up by leaving Substitution unchanged. For all the flaws Chakra Dash and Ultimate Jutsus either had or still do have, neither of them are as frustrating as Substitution. The biggest and most important brand new feature of Storm 2 is Support Drive. Supports do more than just use their jutsus now. Every time you call a support, your support drive gauge increases. Once it reaches a certain point and lights up, your support characters will perform additional actions depending on their support type. There are 3 types of supports: attack type, guard type, and balance type. And they each act differently when you've built enough of the gauge. Attack type now automatically hops in during your combos for extra hits and extra damage, but more importantly, they now perform a strike back, a flashy combo extender that automatically activates whenever your opponent is
I'm
knocked
mad,
away.
so I
Guard
am gonna
types
go for
are
arena.
human shields that magically appear in front of you whenever you're charging up chakra or when the opponent chakra dashes at you. Now, if any of you just assumed that this would work as an effective defense against chakra dash, you'd be absolutely right. This action is called Dash Cut, and it makes guard type supports incredibly valuable. Finally, balance types come in to throw kunai alongside you, which honestly never felt that useful, but more importantly, they'll take the hit of an ultimate jutsu for you at the cost of killing and removing them from the fight. Support types feel like CyberConnect 2's first attempt at introducing mechanical variety into the series. Variety is something that the fighting game community greatly values, but I'll elaborate on that a bit later. The amount of real variety in Storm 1 was incredibly low, with jutsu attacks being the only attack that is functionally unique between everyone, but even then, many of them functioned incredibly
Alright, we'll do
similarly.
it right
The
this
attempt
time.
at some variety is pleasing to see, but unfortunately quite shallow. Support types and the additional features they bring to a match, in actuality, make next to no difference in how you'll play out a match, which is the real issue. You'll still be playing the same way everyone else is, and that makes for a boring fight.
I
The mechanic is
could
further undermined by its poor balancing.
go to Zora.
In-game,
I
balance
could go
type
to
supports are
Akala,
overpowered, which
actually.
disqualifies it from ever
That
being
might not
picked.
be a bad
Attack
idea.
type strike back and guard type's dash cut are too valuable to
At least
justify
I'm not
having a
just
balance type
wasting
anywhere
my
on
time
your team,
grinding.
despite their ability to take the hit of ultimate juices for you or their cover fire. Seriously, look up online matches on YouTube and note the support types that people keep putting on their teams. But you know, it's their first implementation of this entirely new mechanic. It's decent, and additional support functions are a cool addition to the Ultimate Ninja Storm series that aren't going to leave. I mean, the way attack type alters gameplay is especially fun. Now that you're rewarded for knocking the opponent back, you can now turn things like stray jutsu hits into full combos, which can be very fun to pull off. God type significantly alters gameplay as well, but my opinion on how it does this is mixed. I do like that it prevents the opponent from chakra dashing at you with little consequence. Since your support takes the dash for you, a careless chakra dash can actually have consequences. But I still think this is a bit too strong. It's lame that the support does this automatically without requiring any thought from the defender, but hey, even though I'm assessing the competitive viability of the game, I haven't forgotten that these games had to appeal to a wider casual audience. They definitely did a better job at that than most traditional fighting games I know, but in a video like this one, maybe that's not a good sign. God type supports are especially egregious when they're protecting a character while they charge up chakra. This is solely egregious with Awakening, a mechanic that I've yet to mention. It existed in Storm 1, but I didn't have much to say about it. From this game and on is where I think it's very important, so it's time to explain. Not only available to you once you're below 50% health, or somewhere near that, it actually varies by character. It's activated by filling your chakra gauge, then charging it whilst the limit into Awakening. This short time you spend charging into Awakening leaves you wide open, and that's the intent. If the opponent is paying attention, they have a fair opportunity in interrupting your attempts to enter Awakening. This worked just fine in Storm 1. However, in Storm 2, bloody God-type supports want to get in the way of all your attempts at interrupting an Awakening charge. And oh my god, do they do it successfully. Combined with the fact that Awakenings are absolutely busted in this game, God-type supports are frustrating and obnoxious. Good luck fighting against these stupid super armored powerhouse fortresses that you have no shot at preventing.
Thank fuck.
When you are casual, a mechanic like summoning the Susanoo mid-match is super exciting, unless you're on the team. At this point, the series was still far away from being taken seriously competitive. Adding a Tekken character was a nice attempt at trying to convince us, but the substitution still roams free as if it isn't a criminal mechanic that is actively hurting Storm. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 still has barely any
It's stronger but has less durability.
It's at least slightly better than the first game. On the bright side, this game still had a better story mode than pretty much every traditional fighting game ever. I know the gaming industry dislikes quick time events now, but Storm 2 had fantastic action sequences in these quick time events. Also, the music in this game is my favorite in the entire series. Composed by Chikayo Fukuda, many of these tracks you can find in this game are beautiful pieces. Listen to this. Ultimate Storm game was not Ultimate Ninja Storm 3, but instead Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations. I can only assume that with a 3-year gap between Storm 2 and Storm 3, Generations was created in between so that the actual Naruto series had more time to advance the story before Storm 3 was made. If CyberConnect 2 had no choice but to make a side game, Generations was a good idea to go with. Much like Sonic Generations from the year prior, Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations was where young Naruto meets older Naruto in the same game. It was a fun concept, and an excuse to bring back all the younger characters and their movesets that people missed from Storm 1. Alongside the younger characters came some mechanical upgrades. Huge mechanical upgrades. Generations introduces what I consider to be the most important mechanical change in the entire series. This singular adjustment changed Ultimate Ninja Storm forever, transforming it from the funny Naruto party game you play with your school friends into a fighting game that holds the potential for real competitive viability. They reworked substitution.
I wanna see if I can
Praise the
talk to that
Naruto
lady.
gods, because CyberConnect 2 finally addressed the infuriating, nonsensical shit show the substitution was, and reworked it into something immensely better. The days of meshing and praying are dead. Now you'll have to use your substitutions wisely. And you know what? With this change alone, I'm gonna increase the bar right now. So, what's changed? Substitution previously worked by hitting either the guard or substitution button right before an attack hits you, but this timing was so inconsistent that you could almost never get this to work intentionally and would fare much better by mashing buttons until a substitution randomly occurred. No matter how good your mash was,
Like that'll
this
only
mechanic
happen
felt
after
as though it was occurring completely
I
independent of
complete
your
the quest.
ability.
Oh well.
In Generations,
Not
substitution
desperate
occurs
for
whenever
that
you press
much
the button,
rupees
no
right
timing
away.
required. It'll instantly happen when you press it at any moment during hit stun or guard. No caveats. That's not all. Substitution no longer costs any amount of chakra. Instead, substitution now has its own gauge, seated beneath the chakra gauge. Although, unlike the chakra gauge, the substitution gauge is split into 4 blocks. Each time you substitute, it uses up 1 block. If you use up all 4 blocks of the substitution gauge, be prepared to eat a very damaging combo if you get hit. Of course, the substitution gauge does regenerate. Every time you use substitution, no matter how many blocks are left, it takes about 7 in-game seconds for the game to even begin the regeneration process, and about 9 in-game seconds before the gauge has finished regenerating a single block. On top of this, if you use another substitution before the regeneration process begins, it resets the timer, meaning you'll have to wait even longer for the regeneration process to begin. There are situations where your substitution gauge may be completely depleted while you're getting combo. It's tempting to substitute out of a big combo when you see your first block regenerate, but this is a risky idea. If the opponent finds a way to hit you soon after your substitution, the timer resetting means you're a sitting duck, and soon to be a dead one at that. An often safer decision would be to take those extra hits for a few more seconds until your substitution gauge is fully regenerated. Then, even if you find yourself eating another combo soon after using a substitution, you'll at least have more substitutes to work with and be able to stay in the game. I believe that the reworking of substitution was the single most important change for the series,
Besides, that's not gonna be
transforming
the
it
Zora
from
helmet
just
anyway.
another arena fighter into one of the best there is. But it's still an arena fighter. I mean that in a good way because, again, CyberConnect 2 designed a fighting game that needed to appeal to a large audience of young Naruto fans. In that regard, substitution wasn't a huge problem. I could even argue that reworking it to be a smarter mechanic might alienate the casual players that'll go online, get destroyed, and not have a fun time at all. But this game is several years old. I don't need to make arguments, I can just tell you what happened, and what happened is that casual players still love the game. I appreciate the substitution rework so much because it didn't alienate casuals at all. This mechanic may be smarter, but it still isn't complex. In fact, it's far more intuitive than it was before. It didn't alienate casuals, and at the same time, it opened up a space that competitive players could occupy. With this change, bad defense and good defense are now things that exist in the series. But what about offense? The introduction of a new mechanic called Chakra Dash Cancel makes good offense a reality too.
Thank frick,
Chakra
this
Dash
place
Cancel allows you to
doesn't
cancel
just
your combo
crash
strings at any point with a Chakra Dash.
anymore.
Chakra Dash cancelling costs a fair bit more Chakra than a Chakra Dash in neutral, so it must be used with care, but it is well worth using. With this cancel, you're no longer wide
Oh,
open
no.
after your opponent substitutes out of one of your combos. In fact, you can actually punish them for using substitution. If an opponent substitutes your string and tries to do anything other than guard, a well-timed Chakra Dash cancel will punish anything that they try. The threat posed by a Chakra Dash cancel now means that substitution needs to be timed heavily to remain unpredictable, on top of managing the resource well. One of the worst feelings while playing Storm is having your substitution fed by an opponent. It was supposed to be a moment where you reverse the situation, but you find yourself in the exact same situation, except this time with less outs to work with. On the contrary, one of the best feelings in Storm is being the one to do this to someone else. These two big changes were fantastic for the world of offense and defense in Ultimate Ninja Storm. We went from mash and pray to manage resources. It's all dynamic. Neutral has also changed. When a Chakra Dash is guarded, instead of both games bouncing backwards, it now happens to one who uses the Chakra Dash. The one who guarded now has the aim advantage, and the one who dashed now needs to prepare for an attack. This is hugely different from what they had back in Storm 1. For the better, multiple Chakra Dashes now keep you at a disadvantage, so you need to figure out how to master your approach. Or at least, you would have needed to do that if they didn't go and introduce Air Chakra Dash. In Storm 1 and 2, Chakra Dash was something that could only be performed on the ground. Trying to perform it while airborne, but just as fast before you use the ground and start the Chakra Dash there. As of Generations, you can perform Chakra
I
Dashes
admire
while
your
airborne.
determination.
Ultimate Ninja Storm always had regular air dashes, but they were only useful as air combo extenders. They had more tracking and were too slow to be used in neutral. However, Air Chakra Dash is several times faster than the regular air dash. Like the Chakra Dash of Storm 1, these air Chakra Dashes have very little startup frames, making them incredibly hard to react to. Furthermore, jumping over a ground Chakra Dash and punishing it with an air Chakra Dash of your own was now possible. Ground Chakra Dash was no longer risk-free, and because of this, Ultimate Ninja Storm's meta evolved to prioritize jumping and guarding as the best form of movement. At this point, the ground Chakra Dash was significantly weaker than the air Chakra Dash. You still couldn't act out of ground Chakra Dash after it was initiated, so it was relatively unsafe. It traveled further than air Chakra Dash, but that wasn't a good thing when you considered its slightly lengthy startup in combination with the fact that it could be properly punished now. It lost a lot of its usefulness. It lost more than I'd prefer, but this was ultimately a good thing. In Storm, neutral used to be two players Chakra Dashing at each other until one player caved. Generations gave players a reason to consider alternative approach options other than the ground Chakra Dash, and this was a huge step in the right direction for the series. We now have a semblance of offense, defense, and neutral, all in the changes made to one game. If anyone ever says that CyberConnect 2 didn't care at all about its competitive audience, please use this video to disagree. Generation still wasn't the perfect competitive game, far from it, but these design choices are too good and feel too intentional for me to agree with the accusation that CyberConnect 2 didn't care at all. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations has some competitive merit.
What the actual...
That's it. The game has competitive merit. I didn't say it needs to be an amazing competitive fighting game, I just thought we needed to get to a point where the winner was determined by skill, rather than, who was able to mash harder or who was lucky enough to have substitution come out. I mean, look, the fighting game community runs side elements for bloody Beyblade and Sailor Moon. I think that's evidence alone that I shouldn't be holding Ultimate Ninja Storm to some ridiculously high standard. But maybe I still need to once an arena fighter. Like I said, the stigma that carries is huge, and honestly, if the first 2 games are any indicator, that stigma is well deserved. So, I could go into the upcoming Storm games with the mission of convincing that Storm is a good competitive fighting game that deserves a spot as some kind of side event at fighting game tournaments. But what's the point? What's the point in trying to give you an objective answer to a subjective thing? The reason it isn't at fighting game tournaments isn't only because of the stigma. Sometimes a game can be good competitively and you still just don't play it. The stigma stops it from being at fighting game tournaments because people don't give it a real chance. And that's why we're going to delve into the competitive scene of Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 later in the video. However, I'm not here to convince you whether it's a good competitive fighting game or not. From now on, I'm here to just explore the mechanics of Ultimate Ninja Storm, show you what kind of fighting game this is, show you the competitive scene it has. We're only halfway through this series of games though. I said before that you'd be able to understand what was going on during a high-level Storm 4 match by the end of this video, and I've still got a few more mechanics I need to show you before we get to Storm 4. But before I shift the focus onto the next
I
game
think
of the
Dark Army
series, I want to
Resurrection
take this
fixed
opportunity
their
to address one
panic
of the
blood
differences between
moons
this game and other traditional
by
fighters
just
I've talked about on this channel.
making
You know, besides the fact that
the
they
mod
belong to
have
entirely
the
different
disabled
subgenres,
panic blood
I
moon
want to talk
as
about
part of the
archetypes.
base.
Archetypes are integral
Mod
to most
pack.
traditional fighters. One of the cool things about fighting games is that every character plays differently from one another, all achieving victory in different ways. Sometimes there's slight crossover in the way 2 characters play, but there's also usually enough differences between them to let them feel unique. Ultimate Ninja Storm isn't great at this. I'm not saying that everybody plays the same. The game does have different archetypes. And furthermore, there's more uniqueness to a character than just their jutsu or tilt attack. Oh, I've actually yet to talk about tilt attacks. Every character has a tilt attack, performed by flicking the control stick and hitting the melee button. Unlike regular melee attacks that have a universal rule, like you hit the button and they do a small punch or something equivalent to that, tilt attacks vary greatly by character. There's no set purpose that a tilt attack needs to fulfill in a character's moveset. They can be, and often are, straightforward launch type attacks, but they can also be projectiles, or a dodge, or a teleport. Anything that the developers come up with. Alongside jutsu attacks, they're the most unique part of a character's toolkit, and they're sometimes way more creative and interesting than the jutsus can be. But even with tilt attacks in mind, the thing is, at a beginner and somewhat mid-level, a lot of characters function nearly identically to one another. For every truly unique jutsu a character has, there are 5 more characters and jutsus that aren't very unique. For every character defining tilt attack, there are 5 more characters and tilt attacks that don't really stand out. Out of the several video game genres out there, fighting games are one of the best at letting players fully embody fictional characters. You don't just wear the skin of the character and press away until you win the game. You learn the character inside and out. You learn their moveset, you learn what they're good at, and you learn what they're bad at. Then you follow these traits because you are wholly playing as that character. That's why it's upsetting to see so many of these Naruto characters play so similarly when, if you've watched the show, you know that a patient and strategic character like Shikamaru, who waits for his opponents to make fatal mistakes, has no business playing the same way as a straightforward character like Naruto. Harkening back to Persona, a good example of this is in how Arc System Works adapted the Persona 4 characters to the fighting game spin-off Persona 4 Arena. When you play the Persona 4 RPG, you spend about 100 hours with these characters and get to know their personalities. If you were to imagine how each character would approach a fight, their Persona 4 Arena selves are exactly that. Chie is explosive. She'd probably try to just kick the hell out of the opponent, which is what she does in Persona 4 Arena. Yukiko is more reserved, which is reflected in how she elegantly dismantles the opponent from a distance. Naoto is strategic and deductive, and Naoto's playstyle involves laying traps and catching the opponent when they sleep up. Kanji is a straightforward guy, and he approaches a fight just how you'd expect him to, by just grabbing them. Teddy is a joke, and his gameplay is, fittingly, like watching a circus. This is one of the reasons Persona 4 Arena is an amazing fighting game. Fighting games should be taking that extra step. Don't just give the character a punch and a kick and call it a day. The way you think a character would approach a fight should be reflected in how they actually fight in-game. Like, Kona, why are you approaching them? Just turn the water into paper bombs. The characters of the Naruto series all have their different personalities that would be fantastic to see properly reflected in a fighting game. Unfortunately, the Storm series, and honestly, other official Naruto games too, aren't designed in a way that accommodates this kind of expression. They're affected by the need to appeal to a large casual audience, which likely is what encourages the gameplay of these characters to be designed in a simple and easy to pick up format. And yet, I still need to give some props to how Storm approached this subject. I know I just criticized the game for it, and these criticisms still apply, but they do get it right in a few instances with characters like Tamari, Tenten, Kankuro, and a few others. I've only shown off the melee characters throughout most of this video, but Ultimate Ninja Storm does have two other archetypes. The roster is still predominantly melee characters, but there are a few projectile characters such as Tenten, Shino, Tamari, Deidara, Kidomaru, the second Mizukage, and Utakata. The shuriken button is replaced with entire strings of projectiles on these characters, and their melee capabilities are intentionally subpar compared to the rest of the roster. They don't have multiple combos, and the single one that they do have that doesn't do much damage. It's clear that you're supposed to create an offense from a distance, but the problem with characters under this archetype is that they're terrible at their job. 1. They can't keep opponents at a distance because Chocodash easily cuts right through all of the projectiles. 2. Most of these projectile strings aren't even true combos and the opponent can start guarding in the middle of them. 3. The tracking on these projectiles is so laughably bad that I can dodge everything by holding right on my analog stick.
Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces packed.
Nice.
Wait, people have been clowning on Tenten this whole time, but she was just trying to play the matchup. It's disappointing to see this archetype be so flawed. If Mei, the melee character, is in contention for best zoner in the game, you know there's a problem.
Speaking of her combos as well, actually, so the best part about Mizukage Mei is what makes her so strong is actually the fact that she can do is that she can pressure with her IC3 from far. So her IC3 is her intro combo through to 2. That's basically what her IC3 is. This is amazing, because this stops chakra dashes and even stops some projectile jutsu. This makes Mei one of the best zoning characters in the game, probably if not the best zoning character in general.
The other archetype is puppet characters, of which there are 3. Kankuro, Sazori, and Shio. Yes, out of a roster of maybe 70 plus, there are 3 puppet characters. Blame the show. These characters are nothing like the puppets we're used to in traditional fighting games, where 2 characters are both attacking at once. In Ultimate Ninja Storm, the Puppet Master has 0 moves, while the Puppet, a melee character on strings, does all of the work. I'm drawn to these characters on account of how unique they are, but to be honest, they don't deliver either. Their appeal is that they can operate like a melee character from a safe distance, but as a consequence, they are completely defenseless if their opponent is knocked down. I'd always hoped that puppets could introduce some new dynamics into the match, but my unfortunate review of them is that they've never felt that unique in practice. Don't get me wrong, there are certainly aspects to them that only they can replicate, like keeping up full screen pressure while your opponent tries to escape the puppet, but this archetype looks more unique than they actually feel. And also, it's worth taking my review of them with a grain of salt, because I'm not a high-level Storm player, and high-level Storm players probably have a lot more to say about puppets than I do. But regardless, it's disappointing to see these archetypes end up like this, when they also represent some of the few instances of real variety in Ultimate Ninja Storm. Like other fighting games, dedicated players will make these characters work, but I wish you didn't have to be some ultra enthusiast just to make these characters work. Storm's experimentation with alternate archetypes is lacking, but I don't necessarily think it's a failure. I think this is a result of the type of game Storm has to be. There's an audience CyberConnect 2 needs to cater to. Even if they're under a different archetype, characters need to be easy to pick up. They need to be straightforward. Puppet characters do have a significantly higher skill floor than everybody else, but they don't take much effort to pilot at a basic level. They'll just feel like very bad characters to anyone who hasn't put the time into being a Puppet Master. They won't feel impossible to play. In The puppet characters of traditional fighting games scared me away for a long time because they required so much base knowledge before you were even slightly competent with them. This is just one of those things that happens because Ultimate Ninja Storm isn't like other
Salmon
traditional
risotto.
fighters. I like several different fighting game archetypes, so I wish Storm leaned into them more,
Your
but it
mom.
doesn't need to. Storm is fun regardless. And I can assure you, there was more than enough fun to be had with the next game in the series.
Oh.
Whoa.
That I hereby declare war on you all. The fourth great ninja war.
I want the bow and the shield. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that sword looks pretty powerful.
What do I think of Storm 3?
It is the best game. Oh my god, I can't believe it. I mean, my hat's in the way the whole time, but if you play this game, you'll fall in love with it just like I did. I'm pre-ordering it right now.
Storm 3 is an amazing game. This series has always bettered the anime scenes that they recreate with new action sequences or new emotional beats. Storm 3 brought so much to the table that other Storm games look mediocre by comparison. The campaign on offer here should be envied by other fighting games. This game spends its duration adapting the 4th Great Ninja War, an arc that lasts about 200 episodes of anime, but is only 2 days in universe. To anyone that would want to see the events of the 4th Great Ninja War, playing this game isn't a bad way to go about it. But that's enough about the story mode. We're here to look at gameplay in Ultimate Ninja Storm 3.
41
Storm 3
episodes, but
introduces
only
yet
2
another brand new
days.
mechanic that drastically altered the game, but this time it was only for certain characters. Instant Awakening. When you flick the right stick, these characters can instantly enter Awakening, even from the very beginning of the match. This sounds insane, and it kind of is, but there is a catch. While Instant Awakening is in use, the length of the total chakra gauge will continuously deplete. Where did this strange idea for a mechanic even come from? Well, ever since Storm 2, there's been a problem with Awakenings in that they're inconsistent in power between different characters. Many characters have a generic Awakening where they simply do more damage, and that's mostly it. But the game also gives other characters an entire Voltron transformation as their Awakenings, completely altering their moveset in very powerful ways. These Awakenings, at least at this point in the series, are so evidently better than generic Awakenings that it's unfair. Enter Instant Awakening, CyberConnect 2's solution to this problem. Many of the characters with generic Awakenings are now given access to Instant Awakening, while the characters with notably stronger Awakenings are stuck with the Classic Awakening. This balances out Awakenings and doubles as an interesting way to create more diversity between characters. You could pick a character who has access to Awakening whenever they choose, or you could pick a character who needs to access it the classic way, but has a greater ability to make a comeback when doing so. It's a neat idea. Now, let me tell you why it doesn't hold up. Instant Awakening is easily better than Classic Awakening. The additional utility Instant Awakening offers is too good to pass up a lot of the time. One cool technique you can pull off with this mechanic is Jutsu cancelling. Leaving Awakening will cancel the recovery frames of just about anything, and with this, you can perform techniques that weren't possible before, like double jutsu.
Now that's a powerful shield.
Jutsu. This is just one of the many benefits it provides, but the real problem is that Instant Awakening's weakness isn't enough of a weakness. There may be times where you find yourself really low on your total chakra gauge, but managing the gauge isn't very difficult overall. weakness is too negligible, while the strengths of this mechanic are far better than the strengths provided by Classic Awakening. The only thing balancing out the different types of awakenings is the strength of each individual awakening. If you expect to see a random Susanoo instantly appear during the middle of a match, it's not gonna happen. They're all restricted to Classic Awakening because they're so much more powerful than generic awakenings. But unfortunately, I have to tell you that this is flawed as well. The rules for who does and who does not get access to Instant Awakening is surprisingly unclear. With the way I described it, you'd think that there's a consistency to who gets Instant Awakening and who doesn't. Many of the most powerful awakenings I immediately think of are rightfully restricted to Classic Awakening, but then I stumble across a character like
Wow, the
Konan,
difference
who
in
has what I
price
consider to be one of
seems
the
a
most
bit
powerful
unfair.
awakenings in the game. Her moveset changes and her move
Ah,
speed
but the
is
damage
buffed
is
to
pretty minimal
insane
as well.
heights. So, why is this an Instant Awakening? Konan is one of the most obnoxious characters in this game, can access and exit a really strong awakening whenever she wants. This mechanic granted her far too much flexibility, so here she is running away the entire game with ease. There are similar cases to this in characters like Naruto and Minato and some others. Meanwhile, characters that still have generic, weaker awakenings like Shikamaru have it locked behind Classic Awakening. Balancing like this, characters like Shikamaru feel underwhelming and picking them feels like handicapping yourself. Although, I will give the mechanic some credit because it's a lot of fun. And they've given it to characters like Lee and designed a gimmick where he becomes ridiculously powerful at the cost of draining his chakra and health gauge while in awakening. It's a shame that Instant Awakening has this side effect of weakening certain characters. As an idea, the mechanic is a fun solution to the problem of awakenings in this series, and even has the additional benefit of unlocking new techniques to mess around with. But unfortunately, the balance is getting in the way of its potential. The inconsistent selection of who does and who does not have an Instant Awakening bolsters some characters to ridiculous strengths while damning others to complete relevance. Stormfree has some other changes worth mentioning. The game introduces the ability to stop your Chakra Dash partway through pressing the guard button. The lower commitment on the move made it far more usable. However, the Air Chakra Dash is still much more powerful. It's faster and safer, but more importantly, it leaves you in a better position than the Ground Chakra Dash if the opponent guards. Ground Chakra Dash is now very minus on block. That's kind of a fighting game community term, so what I mean is, when a Chakra Dash is guarded, if both players hit a button as soon as possible, the one who guarded will act first and win the exchange. This is what I wanted several games ago, so that Chakra Dash wasn't an easy way to skip neutral. Yet, the Air Chakra Dashes rained on my parade and made this.
You've been using neutral, the term neutral this entire video, which is a fighting game term, and you've never explained it. So why are you explaining frames? Block frames, hit stun, shield stun.
Instant Awakening
That's the word, shield stun.
idea and definitely needs some adjustments, but for first implementation, they did a pretty good job. And then they made Revolution. First Storm game designed with competitive play in mind. They even claim to have spoken to a fighting game expert while designing the new system. Revolution was marketed as featuring a revamped battle system, which I imagine they had no choice but to do since there's little other reason to pay full price for this game. It doesn't offer a real story mode, but instead has mini side stories that give you a look into the background of side characters. And it has Mecha Naruto, I guess. A few reviews claim that the game is just a cash grab and not enough content to justify the full price. But luckily, because this video is centered on the gameplay, all of these things about the game will escape real criticism from me. Revolution does live up to its description of having a revamped battle system, but before I go into detail on the bigger changes, I just want to quickly mention that both Chakra Dashes have been altered for the better. Air Chakra Dash is nerfed and has slower speed, while Ground Chakra Dash has been buffed and can chase airborne opponents. Now,
I don't know what to do
bigger changes?
from
I'll let
here.
Matsuyama explain this one.
I know I have to get stronger, but I don't know what to do to get said power.
Uncle, sorry.
はい、皆さん、こんにちは。サイバーコネクト2番手でございます。今回はですね、こち
I
ら、
think I'm gonna go
ナ
to
ルトシップでナルティメットストームレボリューションの、ご紹介でございます。今回、バトルシステムっていうものを、一新しました。まあ、なんだかんだね、対戦、アクションゲームになりますので、やっぱ長く、遊んでいただくためにですね、バトルのコミュニティっていうものに、今回は重点を置いてですね、今まで1人のキャラクターの中に何でも入ってたんですけど、今回は、3つのバトルスタイルっていうものを、プレイヤーが、自ら、切り替えて遊ぶことができます。なので、1人のキャラクター、例えばナルトでも、扇形と、覚醒型と、
need fairies, need armor
3つ
upgrades,
のバトルスタイルが選べるようになってます。
better
特
weapons,
にやっぱ今回ね、
etc.
このバトルシステムを作ってるんですけど、まあ、我々もサイバーコネクトずっとね、ナルトゲーム作ってきてるっていうのがあるんですけども、より、まあ、対戦の駆け引きを高度にね、楽しんでいただくために、サイバーコネクト2の外部から、
This is
まあ、
that's a solution.
ゲームに、まあ、設置した方っていうのをね、お招きしまして、まあ、そういった方々と一緒に、ちょっとこう、新しいバトルシステムを構築することができましたので、きっとね、まあ、戦略的な駆け引きで、長く、楽しんでもらえる、バトルシステムになっていると思います。ぜひ、
This is a huge change to Storm's gameplay. Before a match begins, you need to pick one of 3 different team types. The 3 being Ultimate Jutsu type, Awakening type, and Drive type. Judging from the names of these types, can you guess how they revamped the gameplay in Revolution? Seriously, take a guess. Might be exactly what you think. Well, yes. They looked at all the mechanics, brought out a knife, and sliced them up into different modes. Ultimate Jutsus are only available if you choose Ultimate Jutsu type, and you won't have access to any kind of awakening or support drives. The same bonkers restriction applies to the other types. If you choose Awakening type, you'll have access to Instant Awakening from the beginning of the match, and also have access to True Awakenings later on. But as it goes, picking this type means having no Ultimate Jutsus and no support drives. And finally, in Drive type, your supports can perform all of the additional functions that Attack type, Guard type, and Balance type provides. However, you can never enter Awakening or use an Ultimate Jutsu. What the hell? What is this game? Where to start? This is the 5th entry into the Storm series. This entire time, you had Ultimate Jutsus, Awakenings, and Support Drives all in one moveset, and the series managed to bring itself to a point where it was far from the perfect competitive game, but it was competitively viable. Admittedly, the longevity wasn't all the way there. However, splicing up the mechanics into different battle types so that the player had even less to work with while in a match was not a good solution. I know Matsuyama stated that this change was made to increase the longevity of the game, but I think that the direction he took this game in is a prime example of how not to increase your game's longevity. It was aiming for depth, and finally, increasing a fighting game's longevity. If your fighting game has depth, you'll still be 100 hours in when you're still discovering new things you hadn't thought of before. Depth is a complicated thing to explain, and even more complicated to achieve. After analysing fighting games a few times on this channel, I've come to see good depth being present in fighting games when that game has mechanics that evolve alongside your growth as a player. The way I often see this achieved is by having individual mechanics that can achieve multiple goals. A great example of this is found with the Roman Dancers and Guilty Gear. They can be used to cancel the recovery of your attacks, which can bolster your offense, defense, and your neutral in too many ways to count. I think a great sign that there's a lot of depth to a game is when you can witness a lot of unique interactions happening while watching top level play that you've never witnessed at lower levels. If you've ever watched a top level match and thought, wow, I never thought to use this tool like that, the game probably has a considerable amount of depth to it. When a mechanic is so open that it can facilitate a lot of different strategies around it that a player may think of, you have depth. And mechanics aren't the only way of bringing depth to a fighting game. There are some out there that are bare in mechanics but achieve depth through how characters are designed. But with a game like Storm that benefits from having everybody play similarly, remember, casual audience, mechanical depth is really their only option if they want to add depth to the game. Storm lacks depth because the mechanics barely evolve with the play. Where you saw top players using Chakra Dash, Substitution, and other mechanics didn't look so different from the way everyone else used them. There were other elements of their play that set them apart from the rest, and mastery of the mechanics is one of those ways, but they were never doing anything I hadn't seen before. Revolution's attempt at achieving depth and increasing longevity misses the mark because, well, it pissed us off by taking our tools away, and nothing about this new mechanic has the potential to evolve alongside the player. Whether a player has Revolution for 2 hours or for 200, the gameplay is not going to look any different just because of team types. I don't see team types as real depth. I see a surface level attempt to introduce choices to the player, and preferably, I don't want my decision making around a system mechanic to happen before the actual fighting game fight has begun. I want it to be during the fight. I want to have active decision making that differs depending on my opponent's decision making and the current state of the game. Funnily enough, I think Storm 3 has more longevity than Revolution. Though it was likely unintended, Recovery Council from Instant Awakening gave me new ideas to experiment with, even after I was several hours into the game. Here is where I actually did see other players using the mechanic in ways I haven't thought of before. Technically, Instant Awakening is still here in Evolution, and now everyone has it, but it's lame that you'll have to play without drive types and ultimate jutsus in order to use it. Team types are awful, and everyone hates it. In regards to less hated additions to Revolution, there are 2 other new mechanics, Guard Break and Counter Attack. Guard Break is a short linear dash that will break the opponent's guard. You have a maximum of 2 uses, so you better make each one count. It's a nicely balanced way to instantly break someone's guard in your or if you introduce enough gear to make them stand still and guard. Stun that Guard Break inflicts prevents substitutions or support moves for a short while, so you'll be able to perform a full combo or choose a type, an ultimate jutsu. Then there's Counter Attack.
I'm convinced Track 3 doesn't exist.
Button, you'll flash and perform a counter. If
Track
the
2, I
hits
mean.
the counter with a melee attack or chakra dash, they'll be inflicted with the same stun that
It's
Guard
only
Break
ever Track
does,
1 and Track
except
3
it
that
lasts
plays.
way longer. Counter Attack will shave off a good chunk of your total chakra gauge whenever it's used, and it doesn't regenerate all too quickly, so it should be used sparingly. It's well implemented, to an extent. This mechanic has extremely tight timing, which is a good thing. However, people take issue with the lengthy stun it inflicts. Now, I can't faithfully provide my own opinion of the mechanic because I didn't play much of Revolution. But for research, everybody despised the length of stun it inflicted. Although they slightly fumbled the execution, adding a new defensive mechanic was a great idea. Storm has always been an extremely aggressive fighting game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but any mechanic they add that causes a player to hesitate instead of immediately starting Chakra Dash is a mechanic that I can appreciate. I can't faithfully speak to how this mechanic felt in practice. All I can say is that if casual players and competitive players had one thing in common, it was that they hated the stun. No, it's a shame. CyberConnect 2 has been persistent in trying to improve the gameplay of the Storm series through new mechanics, and sometimes they've succeeded, but Revolution was undeniably a failure. This was the one game that they explicitly said they wanted to better their game, make it more competitive, and increase longevity, and they even brought in fighting game experts. But the result? Rejection from long-time fans. Indeed, a revolution for the series, but not one that changed anything for the better. And you know, trying something completely new, like what Revolution did, is always going to be risky, and you can't predict how people will take it. It's actually kind of normal to not get it right on the first try. I can think of more than a few competitive fighting games that didn't get it right on the first try, but through listening to feedback and continuous updates to their
I'll end
game,
it here.
they grew into something that everybody loves.